All about A'ja Wilson's legacy. She made history before the ball even tipped, but the game that followed.
Nobody, and I mean nobody, saw this coming. That was the energy pulsing through the arena as the final buzzer sounded and the Las Vegas Aces, the so-called unstoppable defending champions, walked off their own court stunned, silent, and defeated. This wasn't supposed to happen. Tonight was meant to be a coronation, a celebration of dominance. A night for A'ja Wilson to bask in her newly crowned MVP glory while Vegas fans roared in approval. Hours before tip-off, cameras flashed, speeches were made, and the spotlight burned brightly on Wilson as she held up that MVP trophy like a queen displaying her crown. The narrative was already written. This was going to be the start of another title run. The moment when Vegas flexed their power and sent a message to the rest of the league that nobody was taking their throne. But when the game began, everything flipped. What was supposed to be a victory lap for the Aces turned into a nightmare they never saw coming. Because the Indiana Fever didn't just show up to compete. They came to fight. They came to expose, and they came to shock the world. From the opening tip, it was clear this game was going to be a war. The Aces came out swinging, literally with elbows, cheap shots, and flops. Trying to intimidate the underdog Fever, A'ja Wilson herself set the tone in the worst way possible, throwing elbows away from the ball, shoving players after whistles, and selling contact like a soccer star desperate for a foul call. Jackie Young followed her lead, throwing her body around on screens like she was playing linebacker instead of guard. But here's the thing, the Fever didn't flinch. Every push was met with resistance. Every shove was met with speed. Every dirty tactic Vegas tried to use backfired. Because Indiana wasn't intimidated. They were motivated. This wasn't just another playoff game for them. This was a chance to take all the disrespect, the injuries, the doubt, the talking heads who said they didn't belong, and turn it into fuel. 6 players were missing, including superstar Caitlin Clark, emotional leader Sophie Cunningham, and defensive anchor Sydney Colson. Analysts said the Fever shouldn't even be on the same court as the mighty Aces. Becky Hammon, Vegas's head coach, even dismissed Indiana publicly, saying they hadn't seen the real Aces yet. That arrogance stripped off every pregame interview, every pregame prediction, every stat sheet that made it seem like this series was over before it began. But when nobody expects you to win, you play free. And that's exactly what Indiana did. The first quarter wasn't just about basketball, it was about setting a tone. Kelsey Mitchell, the heartbeat of this battered Fever roster, came out with fire in her eyes and ice in her veins. Every time Vegas scored, she came right back with a dagger. By the end of the night, Mitchell would have a playoff career high, 34 points. Torching every defender Vegas threw at her. Chelsea Gray, cooked. Jackie Young, burned. Jewel Lloyd, roasted. Nobody could stop her. And she didn't do it with trash talk or theatrics. She did it with pure skill and relentless determination. While A'ja Wilson flopped and pleaded with refs, Mitchell just kept hitting jumper after jumper, slicing through the defense like a hot knife through butter. It wasn't just scoring, it was psychological warfare. With every shot that dropped, you could feel the shift in the building. Vegas started to panic. Their crowd got quiet. Their swagger started to look like desperation. And that's when the Fever went for the throat. Odyssey Sims, the veteran leader who has seen every kind of playoff battle, took control of the game's tempo. On defense, she was a nightmare. Deflections, steals, forcing turnovers that led to fast break buckets. On offense, she was calm and calculated, slowing things down when Vegas tried to speed them up, and then exploding to the rim when they least expected it. Her leadership was the glue holding Indiana together, keeping them focused while Vegas descended into chaos. And speaking of chaos, let's talk about Lexi Hull. She's not the biggest name, she doesn't fill up highlight reels, but what she did to Jackie Young tonight was pure lockdown defense. Young came into this game ready to bully, to attack downhill, to impose her will. Hull shut all of that down. She forced Young east to west instead of north to south, cutting off driving lanes, contesting every shot, and making her work for every single point. Hull ended the game with a staggering plus 24 plus minus, the best on the team. That's impact you can't ignore. And here's the kicker. Hull did all this while getting shoved, tripped, and thrown to the floor by Vegas players who were desperate to rattle her. A'ja Wilson herself targeted Hull repeatedly with moving screens and illegal pushes, but Hull never broke. By the end of the game, when she finally spoke in the locker room, her words summed up the entire Fever mentality. We're capable of whatever we want. Those aren't just words. That's a warning shot for the rest of this series. The physicality in this game was off the charts, but it wasn't equal on both sides. Vegas crossed the line over and over again. There were flops so blatant they drew laughter from the crowd. There were shoves and transition plays that had nothing to do with blocking a shot. At one point, Kelsey Mitchell drove for a layup and was blatantly shoved into A'ja Wilson by another defender. And somehow, Mitchell got called for the foul. The officiating felt like it was bending to the home team early. But instead of whining, Indiana turned every bad call into motivation. They didn't retaliate. They didn't let it distract them. They used it as fuel. Brianna Turner and Natasha Howard, battling in the paint against Wilson and company, played disciplined, tough defense without resorting to dirty tactics. Every rebound was a fight. Every rotation was precise. And slowly, possession by possession, they frustrated the Aces into bad shots. The result? A'ja Wilson, the league's newly crowned MVP, finished with a brutal stat line -6 for 22 shooting. That's right. The player everyone said was unstoppable was completely neutralized. And the one responsible for that defensive masterpiece? Aaliyah Boston. On the same night, Wilson was celebrated as the best in the league. Boston went head-to-head with her former South Carolina teammate and flat out won the battle. Boston didn't just defend Wilson, she owned her. She bodied her up, forced her off her spots, contested every shot without fouling, and ripped down rebounds like they belonged to her and no one else. The contrast between the two stars was glaring. While Boston stayed calm and composed, Wilson grew more and more erratic, resorting to flops. Wild contested jumpers and constant pleading with referees. By the fourth quarter, it was clear who the real dominant force on the floor was, and it wasn't the player holding the MVP trophy. By the time the final horn sounded, the scoreboard read Indiana Fever 89, Las Vegas Aces 73. The 6th seed had just walked into the defending champions building and humiliated them on national television. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't luck. This was a systematic dismantling. And here's a stat that should terrify Vegas fans. 72% of teams that win game one in a best-of-5 series go on to win the series. That means this upset isn't just a single loss. It's a warning sign that the Fever are here to take everything. Stephanie White, Indiana's head coach, summed it up perfectly after the game. It doesn't matter who's on the floor. It doesn't matter who's on our roster. They play for each other. They live the we over the me. That's the difference. Las Vegas came into this series overconfident, assuming their talent and history would carry them through. But in Game 1, they were exposed. The Fever didn't just beat them, they broke them mentally. Game 2 now looms as a must-win for the Aces, and you can bet Becky Hammon will make adjustments. Expect Jackie Young to be glued to Kelsey Mitchell like a shadow. Expect more plays designed to get Wilson easy looks near the rim. Expect Vegas to try and slow the pace down and turn this into a grind. But Indiana, they've got nothing to lose. They're playing free, fearless basketball, and now they know they can beat the so-called best team in the league. This wasn't just a game. It was a message. The Aces thought this series would be about their dominance. Instead, it's about the Fever's resilience, grit, and refusal to be intimidated. A'ja Wilson got her flowers before the game, but by the end of the night, those flowers were trampled underfoot by a team that refuses to be overlooked. The Indiana Fever just flipped the entire WNBA playoff picture upside down, and they're not done yet. Upside down, and they're not done yet. This is no longer just a playoff series. It's a battle for pride, legacy, and survival. After what we witnessed in Game 1, the entire balance of power in the WNBA has been shattered. The Las Vegas Aces, a team that strutted into these semifinals with championship rings, an MVP trophy, and 18 wins in their last 19 games, are suddenly standing on shaky ground. The Indiana Fever didn't just steal a win, they ripped away the illusion of invincibility that Vegas had built around themselves. Game 1 was supposed to be a coronation for A'ja Wilson, a night when her MVP moment would inspire her team to dominate. Instead, it became a night of humiliation. The defending champions were exposed on their own court, beaten physically, mentally, and tactically by a Fever team missing 6 key players. That kind of embarrassment doesn't just sting, it leaves scars. And now, as we head into Game 2, everything changes. The Aces aren't just fighting to tie the series. They're fighting to protect their reputation, their dynasty, and the very perception that they are the standard of the league. For Indiana, this isn't just a chance to advance, it's an opportunity to deliver a knockout punch that would send shockwaves through the entire WNBA. Game 1 was a wake-up call. Vegas didn't want but desperately needed. Heading into that matchup, their arrogance was unmistakable. Head coach Becky Hammon said it herself before tip-off. They haven't seen the real Aces yet. Those words weren't just confidence. They were a declaration that Indiana didn't belong on the same stage. The pre-game MVP ceremony only amplified that swagger. Wilson stood center court, flashing smiles, soaking in cheers, holding her trophy high as cameras clicked away. The message to the Fever was loud and clear. This is our house. This is our time. But the moment the ball went up, Indiana shattered that narrative. Kelsey Mitchell, Odyssey Sims, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull didn't just compete, they dictated every second of that game. And they did it by refusing to play Vegas's game. The Aces wanted chaos, intimidation, and physical dominance. Indiana responded with precision, speed, and composure. From the opening minutes, Vegas tried to bully their way to victory. A'ja Wilson came out throwing elbows like she was in a street fight, setting illegal screens, shoving players after whistles, and flopping like her life depended on it. Jackie Young joined in, delivering blindside hits on cuts and screens that belonged in a football game, not a basketball court. The message was clear. We're bigger, we're stronger, and we're going to push you around until you fold. But Indiana didn't fold. They thrived. Every cheap shot Vegas threw only made the Fever sharper. Odyssey Sims locked in on defense, her hands everywhere, her communication constant. Natasha Howard and Brianna Turner refused to be pushed off their spots, standing firm in the paint like brick walls. And Kelsey Mitchell, she didn't just answer with buckets, she silenced the entire arena with a shooting performance that will be remembered for years. 34 points, clutch jumpers, relentless drives. Vegas defenders looked like traffic cones as she carved them up possession after possession. No matter how much Wilson flopped, no matter how much Hammon yelled, there was no stopping Mitchell. By the third quarter, the Aces weren't just behind on the scoreboard. They were unraveling emotionally. And that unraveling was beautiful for Indiana. You could see it in Wilson's body language. The MVP's frustration boiled over with every missed shot. She finished 6-for-22 from the field, an atrocious line for a player celebrated as the league's best. Instead of leading her team, Wilson resorted to desperation, flailing her arms at referees, collapsing to the floor in exaggerated flops, taking contested shots that had no chance of going in. Aaliyah Boston, meanwhile, stayed calm and unshakable. On the same night Wilson was celebrated, Boston owned their head-to-head matchup. Every time Wilson tried to spin into the lane, Boston was there, cutting off angles, forcing her into awkward positions and snatching rebounds with authority. The contrast couldn't have been starker. One player composed and prepared, the other rattled and desperate. Lexi Hull's role can't be overlooked either. She was targeted all night by Wilson's moving screens and Jackie Young's aggression. But she didn't back down. Hull's defense on Young was suffocating. She forced her to play east to west, denying her preferred driving lanes and holding her to inefficient contested shots. Her plus-minus of plus 24 wasn't luck, it was dominance. And after enduring shove after shove, when Hull finally spoke post-game, she delivered a line that sent chills through the Fever locker room. "We're capable of whatever we want." That wasn't just confidence. That was a statement that this team, counted out by everyone, now believes they can take down the champs. Game 2 will test that belief like never before. Vegas is wounded and furious. Becky Hammon is too smart to let her team play the same sloppy, undisciplined game twice. Expect massive adjustments. Jackie Young will likely shadow Kelsey Mitchell from the opening tip, trying to deny her the ball and wear her down physically. Expect Wilson to get deep post touches early, forcing Boston into foul trouble and giving the Aces a reliable scoring option inside. Vegas will try to slow the pace, limit turnovers, and control the game through half-court sets. And don't be surprised if the whistles start favoring the home team even more than before. The league knows it doesn't want its reigning champions down 0-2 heading to Indianapolis. But here's the problem for Vegas. Indiana now knows they can beat them. Confidence is everything in the playoffs, and right now, the Fever have it in spades. Stephanie White's coaching masterpiece in Game 1 wasn't just about X's and O's. It was about belief. She has her players buying into a system built on trust, sacrifice, and relentless effort. Even the injured players, Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson, were on the sidelines acting like extra coaches, shouting instructions, keeping morale high, fueling the team's energy. That kind of unity is dangerous. While Vegas was bickering, pleading with refs, and looking for excuses, Indiana was building each other up. The stakes couldn't be higher heading into Game 2. If the Fever win again, they don't just take a 2-0 series lead, they all but eliminate the defending champs. History backs it up. In a best-of-5 series, teams that go up 2-0 win nearly every time. That means Vegas is playing for their season. The pressure is suffocating, and pressure does strange things to teams that aren't mentally locked in. If Wilson comes out trying to prove a point instead of playing within the system, it could backfire. If Becky Hammon panics and shortens her rotation too much, Indiana can exploit tired legs late in the game. And if Kelsey Mitchell catches fire again, forget it. The Aces won't have an answer. Meanwhile, Indiana is playing with house money. They've already done what nobody thought they could, steal Game 1 in the toughest arena in the league. Now, every possession in Game 2 is an opportunity to increase the pressure, to make Vegas hear the footsteps of history closing in. Odyssey Sims will continue to set the tone defensively. Brianna Turner and Natasha Howard will keep battling in the trenches. And Boston, she's ready to show that her Game 1 dominance over Wilson wasn't a fluke. It was the beginning of a new rivalry, one that could define the next era of the WNBA. This series started as a clash between a champion and an underdog. After Game 1, that narrative is dead. Now it's a battle of equals. And maybe, just maybe, Indiana is the team rising while Vegas is the one falling. When the ball tips for Game 2, the Aces will be desperate, angry, and dangerous. But desperation cuts both ways. If Indiana strikes first, if they weather the initial storm and keep their composure, they could walk out of Vegas with the Aces season in their hands. One more win, and the defending champs would be staring at elimination. Forced to travel to Indianapolis with their dynasty crumbling. For years, the Aces have been the standard. Tonight, they face the reality that their reign might be ending. And if Indiana has anything to say about it, the future of the WNBA is about to be rewritten. WNBA is about to be rewritten. This isn't just a Game 3. This is the night where legacies are forged. Dynasties crumble, and a new chapter in basketball history begins. The Indiana Fever are standing on the edge of something so monumental that even they might not fully grasp the magnitude of what they are about to accomplish. All season long, the narrative belonged to the Las Vegas Aces, the reigning champions, the powerhouse franchise, the team that everyone said was untouchable. They were supposed to march back to the finals, claim another title, and solidify themselves as the undisputed queens of the WNBA. But Indiana, the youngest team in the playoffs, Missing 6 core players, including Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, has flipped that entire script upside down. They didn't just beat the Aces in Game 1, they humiliated them on their home floor. Outworking, outsmarting, and outlasting a team that has been the league's gold standard for the past 3 seasons. Now, with Game 3 looming, the Fever aren't just playing to win a series. They are playing to dismantle a dynasty and send a message to every single team in the WNBA. The future is here. And it wears blue and gold. For Las Vegas, this game represents survival. Their backs are slammed against the wall, and they know that if they don't deliver, their reign ends tonight. Becky Heyman is one of the sharpest coaches the league has ever seen, but even she is under immense pressure. She's been questioned all season about rotations, about chemistry issues, but relying too heavily on A'ja Wilson to carry the load. Game 1 exposed every single flaw. The Aces looked disjointed, desperate, and completely unprepared for Indiana's relentless attack. Wilson, the newly crowned MVP, visibly rattled as Aaliyah Boston dominated her physically and mentally, turning what should have been a night of celebration into a nightmare. When the player who is supposed to be your leader spends more time flopping, pleading with referees, and throwing wild shots than executing your game plan, that's a red flag the size of the strip itself. Jackie Young tried to bring energy. Chelsea Gray tried to steady the ship, but it wasn't enough. In many ways, Game 1 wasn't just a loss, it was an unraveling. And if the Aces lose tonight, it could signal the end of their era before anyone expected it. Meanwhile, Indiana has been playing with the kind of freedom and belief that makes teams dangerous. Head coach Stephanie White deserves enormous credit for the game plan she crafted. While Vegas came in with their chest out, Indiana came in locked in on execution. They didn't get rattled by the hostile crowd, the whistles, or the physicality. Instead, they thrived on it. Kelsey Mitchell's performance in Game 1 was nothing short of legendary. 34 points, ice-cold jumpers, relentless attacks at the rim. Every time the Aces made a run, Mitchell answered with a dagger. And she did it all while being hounded by Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray, 2 of the best perimeter defenders in the league. It wasn't just scoring, it was leadership. Mitchell wasn't just playing for herself. She was dragging her team forward, possession after possession, proving that the Fever have more than one star capable of changing a game. Aaliyah Boston's battle with A'ja Wilson was the heart of this series. On paper, Wilson should have had the edge. She's taller, she's stronger, she's the MVP. But on the court, Boston flipped the script completely. She didn't back down for a single second. She fought for position on every rebound, challenged every shot at the rim, and forced Wilson into an ugly 6-for-22 shooting night. That kind of defensive dominance isn't just impressive, it's demoralizing for the other team. When your superstars locked up, the ripple effect is devastating. Vegas's entire offensive system collapsed because Wilson couldn't get going and no one else was ready to step up. Tonight, Boston has the chance to do it again, to prove that her Game 1 performance wasn't a fluke but the start of a new rivalry that could define the next decade of the WNBA. Odyssey Sims and Lexi Hall were the unsung heroes in Game 1, and they will be just as critical in Game 3. Sims brings a level of toughness and vocal leadership that Indiana desperately needs, especially in a high-pressure road environment. She has a knack for making the right play at the right moment. Whether it's a timely steal, a perfectly timed assist, or a defensive stop that flips momentum. Hull, on the other hand, is Indiana's quiet assassin. Her defense on Jackie Young was suffocating, forcing Young into uncomfortable spots and taking away her favorite moves. And when Hull hits her threes, it opens the floor for Mitchell and Boston to operate even more effectively. These 2 players may not grab the headlines, but their impact is felt on every possession. The Fever's success is also fueled by something deeper: belief. Even though they are missing Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and several key contributors, this team has rallied around each other in a way that few teams ever do. Clark, despite being sidelined, has been a constant presence on the bench, offering advice, encouragement, and energy. Her leadership, even in street clothes, has been invaluable. This unity has created a culture where every player feels empowered to step up, and that makes Indiana incredibly dangerous. When the Aces start jawing, when the refs make questionable calls, and the crowd tries to rattle them, the Fever don't splinter, they come together. If Indiana wins tonight, the fallout